who, fortunately, I'm happy to say is also a very long-time friend of mine and somebody that I'm really pleased to see again, number one, and thrilled to have you here in New Orleans, but mostly happy to welcome you here to the Sync Up Conference. Everybody, please welcome Ariel Hyatt.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Ariel is truly one of the pioneers of independent publicity and specifically digital publicity for independent artists. She has been at this for more than 20 years. She has her own firm, Cyber PR, based in New York. She has written 4 best-selling books on various versions of the topic of how artists can empower themselves in the modern music. I'm not going to use the word music industry, even though I know it's kind of a misnomer nowadays, but so she's truly one of the experts in this. And when she told me that she was going to be in town, I thought it would be a natural to ask her to talk about something that she speaks about a lot, which is how to build anticipation for a record release. So I don't know if you have any opening remarks that you wanted to start with, but let's just go ahead and jump into it. And we're going to get to questions as soon as we can.
So just so I can cater this a bit, who here is an artist releasing something within the next 12 months? Who here is not an artist but does something else on the music side? Okay. We're mostly artists.
Who raised their hand twice?
You did.
Okay.
I know, you could just keep raising it. Like, who's your, you do it all. I know. I'm so excited to be here. I have been to 23 jazz fests. I love your fair city, even when it is wet.
As it is tonight.
And
Yes.
It has been the last few days. But anyway, I'm delighted to be here, and this is an important topic. As I was saying in the pre-roll with Scott, I think that this is the least sexy part of what we get to talk about when it comes to music. Obviously, the music is the best part, and then comes the things that are the buzz things, like social media and Spotify and playlists, and there's all these sort of hot things. And then there's the thing, which is the most important thing, which is the planning and the making sure that you don't fall off the rails. And I think the part that is the hardest now, I've been helping independent artists my entire adult life, and 23 years I've owned my own business. The thing that doesn't seem to get easier is every year artists have to do more. You have to do more, you have to learn more, you have to stay on top of all this stuff that for most creatives, it's not natural. Nobody decided to record music because they wanted to tweet, right? So I think it's just it's the painful reality.
But most people get into music because they love spreadsheets.
Right, everybody loves a good Excel sheet. So I'm excited to talk about planning because I see all the time, it's not just about the Friday that you're putting your music up, right? It's about everything leading up to it. And now more than ever, you as artists or labels or managers, you are expected to bring your own party to your release. And I think there's a lot of bad information about some sort of magical thing out there, like PR or radio campaign or something that's going to do that for you. And the truth is, you need to do a lot of this yourself. You need to bring your own fans to your release, and that's what planning is about.
Okay, well, so since you bring that up, let's just go ahead and spend just 2 minutes talking about something that you were telling me, which is how you have, in fact, because of your emphasis on planning, have actually shifted the direction of your company. That you're no longer, even though it's called cyber PR and you're known as a PR guru.
That's why they call.
Yes. You no longer do PR.
I do not.
Now you focus on planning. Can you talk about that and the importance of it?
Yes. So many years of doing PR, I realized as the years clicked along that it wasn't working the way that it used to. I think even 10 or 15 years ago, the dream of getting a big PR hit, getting something that was significant, could really shift something for artists. And I realized as the rise of digital and the rise of music blogs and having fewer and fewer national outlets where artists, especially independent artists, were getting featured, I realized it wasn't moving the needle almost at all. So to charge artists that work very hard for their money several $1,000s to get them on tiny little music blogs that were not going to make a huge difference felt out of integrity and horrible. And so for me, it's always been about being of help. And what I realized was most artists don't have the privilege of a really good planner on their team unless you have a record label where there's someone that really knows this stuff, or a manager who has very good long-term perspective. The thing that was missing in the marketplace, as far as I could see, was someone to really help artists make plans. So I threw out the PR playbook, and now we do what we call total tune-ups, which is basically roto-rootering through our clients' everything: your website, your socials, your image, your brand, what is happening with your release schedule for the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months, and what are your goals? Because I think when you're so crazy focused on that Instagram post that has to go up and that next gig that has to get booked, you begin to lose your long-term perspective because your pants are on fire and you're constantly reacting. So it's my job to get out ahead of all of that so that something can get put into place. So your dream, whatever it is, touring Europe, getting signed, getting a manager, getting a booking agent, can happen. And it only happens if you put something into place every day to move towards it. Unfortunately, every day you have to be tweeting and Facebooking and doing all this other stuff. So that's why I do planning now.
Great, awesome. So the topic is how to make the most of your record release. And so I assume everybody here is very interested to know, assuming everybody here is going to be releasing new music sometime soon, what are some of the steps that one can take to make sure that your record lands with a bang and not with a thud? So we're going to talk about a lot of the specifics that go into all of the different things. And I hope you brought a pencil and paper, because you're going to get a to-do list here. We're going to talk about all that stuff in detail. But what I'd like to start with, if I could, is the whole notion of a release date. So historically, release dates were chosen by some sort of crazy hocus pocus that I never understood. Whether it was timed to, and this, I'm talking pre-digital, to take advantage of Christmas holidays, or sometimes it might be timed so that you're not too late for Grammy consideration. Or for a tour. But there was this mystical formula of everybody would release their record on a Tuesday. Right. Which I never understood.
So Tuesday, it turns out, was delivery day to the record stores. That was when record stores would put out the new releases. For those of us that are old enough, remembering standing outside Tower Records on Monday night, waiting for that glorious moment to get your release.
Megadeth's greatest hits.
Obviously. So Tuesday, that was the day. That is now no longer the day. Now the day is Friday. And the reason the day is now Friday is because Spotify, which is unfortunately the answer to most questions that we now can ask in this independent music world. So now, Friday, but still this random question of when and why and what date are we choosing. And then another thing to consider, I know that so many artists still love recording albums. I talk to many artists that have 12 or 14 tracks. The problem is most consumers now can't deal with 12 or 14 tracks. They can barely deal with EPs, 5 or 6 tracks. And how most people are listening, as we know, is in a singles-based world. So part of your record release journey, even if you want to put out 12 tracks, and there's nothing wrong with that, especially jazz artists don't usually put out one track at a time, you do want to make sure that you plan several singles before your release. So your release now can last for a much longer time, and this is a good thing. The reason why it's good is every time you have a single, you can choose a different path for that single. So let's say you've got a 12-track album. I would actually recommend you do somewhere between 4 and 5 singles. Or if you have 2 EPs, I would do 2 or 3 singles per EP if you're brave enough to slice your full length in half. And then the great news about this is the crazy is less, because with each single, you have one plan. So for example, one plan might be, I want to make a really good video. And the idea around this would be, I'll put this single out, we'll have a great video. I will use that video to build my YouTube channel, to get more subscribers on my YouTube, to create something happening on YouTube, Or maybe you don't really use YouTube that much. Maybe you'll want to use that video on Facebook and upload it natively there and drive views to your Facebook page. Your next single, maybe you decide what you want to do with that single is build your email list, and so on and so on. So each single can have a different reason for coming into the world, and you can choose your own adventure for it. And I think this takes the pressure off of having to do everything for every single release.
So strategic thinking for each release. Each release has to have a purpose, something other than, oh, I just made this killer new track and now I'm going to put it out. It has to be accomplishing something larger, whether that's building your YouTube channel or your email list or something like that. All right, I want to get back to the Friday and Friday. Can you explain why Friday matters?
Does anyone know why Friday matters?
Payday?
I wish, unfortunately, no. New Music Friday playlist is why it matters, which pretty much no one is going to get on that I know, because that's the reality. But new music is now released on Fridays because the playlists are now refreshed on Fridays. So when you decide that your record release party is on a Saturday or a Wednesday and you want to put your album out on that day, you look like a noob. Don't do that. Put it out on a Friday. That's my advice.
Okay.
You can put it out, if your record release party is on a Wednesday, put it out 2 days later. That's okay. You can still sell the album at your record release or whatever, but Friday is the day.
All right, I want to get deeper into picking a release date, but I do have one preamble question. Is it fair to say that what we're going to talk about applies equally to singles as it does to albums? By which I mean, what if you're not putting out an album at all? You just want to put out a single,
Right.
And that's it. There's one band that I follow that happens to be an Australian band that they've been together for 10 years and they only just put out their first album. If you look at their Spotify history, they put out one single in 2012, and that's it.
Wow.
Another single in 2013, and so on. Mm-hmm. And they didn't have a full album until 2018, but they had a killer song once a year. I mean, so is it safe to say that the strategies that we're going to be discussing that apply to albums also could apply equally to singles if that's what your release is?
100%.
Okay, all right. So second question, before we get to choosing the date. When we talk about release, maybe we should define our terms a little bit. Because some people will probably press up CDs. Some people may even go ahead and press up vinyl. Most everybody will, in all likelihood, and this wasn't the case 3 years ago, will put their music on Spotify and Apple Music and CD Baby and YouTube and wherever else, and will go through a digital distributor like a CD Baby or a TuneCore or a DistroKid or something like that. And so you can control the date upon which your music is made available. So when we say release, are we basically talking the day it becomes available on Spotify and Apple Music?
That is what we were talking about.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure. Now, okay, so I know it's going to be a Friday. Any Friday? Does it matter? How do you pick a date?
This is where knowing your audience and knowing yourself is important. So a lot of us...
we're going to have a Friday this coming week. Is that as good a day as any? Or, how do you choose?
Well... you'd be amazed how many people call me and they're like, it's coming out tomorrow. I'm like, you idiot. Like, now I can't do anything. And they still put it out. So I understand it's finished, it's ready, that sense. I write books. That sense of urgency rushes in. You just want to share your thing with the world, of course. Resist. Resist the temptation to do that. Any Friday, the answer is yes, but don't be a schmuck. So... Not Christmas Eve. I literally had someone releasing unless the song is called Today is Christmas Eve, no. Maybe not the Friday of a long holiday weekend, like the 4th of July, when everyone is not at their computer downloading music, but is like at the lake having a barbecue, right? Think about that kind of thing. I have had artists call me, they have chosen Good Friday as their release, forgetting that they don't have religion, but other people do. So be thoughtful. There was an article some of you might have read if you stalk the music blogs that the best day to release a record, and this threw my company into chaos for weeks, is a Friday in April. I get what the writer was trying to say. April is after South by Southwest, and that chaos, April is before everybody goes into like their summer coma. It's not during Christmas. However, no, that's not a hard and fast rule. And I also think there's a lot of fear around releasing albums at Christmas time. You've all been told, never release in Q4. None of us are signed to Sony. Is anyone signed to Sony? Warner Brothers, anything? No, right. So that whole notion of don't release at Christmas might not apply to us because you're not competing with Mariah Carey's greatest hits at Walmart, which is the only reason why you would not put your album out, because when physical distribution was happening, we were competing. So there is no real ideal time. The ideal time is when is your audience going to think it's an ideal time? When do you have a break in your life where you can give it some time to plan? And how much time do you need to actually prepare? That should be the leading questions. I have worked with crazy artists that only choose dates based on what their numerologist or their horoscope planners say. Those are challenging to work with because they're obsessed with certain days. I respect that. It's probably not the best way to release your music.
So if you're able to think far enough ahead, a year, 2 years down the road, you may say, okay, well, if it's February now, in November of 2020, I'm working on a European tour, and so I should time a release that's going to have an impact on that tour 16 months from now. But most people aren't really able to plan what's happening in there. At this level, we're not able to plan our careers that far out. So is it safe to say that, well, you tell me, is it ever a good idea to pick a release date before the record is done?
No.
Okay. Why?
Well, how many of you have ever had a problem with pressing CDs up? Did that go as exactly as it was supposed to? It never does. How many of you have ever had a problem with your web designer who disappeared into thin air? They always seem to go on vacation right when you need your website to go live. You want to just make sure that you don't get caught in the crosshairs. So it's important to give yourself an ample amount of time, and having the music done, having the CD pressed with the correct liner notes, all of that, because there's nothing worse, especially when you've booked a gig and you've got a release party and you were anticipating selling merch at that gig, and then all of a sudden whatever happens and there's people shaking their heads like, yep, that has happened to us. So, your vinyl isn't shipped and you're having a vinyl release party, it could really suck.
So rule of thumb, don't even think about picking a record release date until the record is literally mixed, mastered, pressed, done, in the box, in your hand, sitting on your desk, ready to go. And so don't even think about a date.
If that's how you release, right? Not everybody does that. Some of us are all digital artists. That's fine. You're going to press a button and CD Baby's probably going to deliver it fast, but not always. Again, you want to make sure you're not cutting off your nose to spite your face. But yes, you want to make sure it is mixed, mastered, ready.
Okay, so is there an optimum amount of time that a person would need, or that you would need, to be able to complete all of those steps? Is it a 3-month window? Is it a 6-month window? Is it a 6-week window? How much time should an artist leave him or herself when you say, okay, my record's done, I'm ready, I'm all loaded up to Spotify, all they need is the date that I say, when I tell them 11 a.m. on such and such a date, they'll set it. How do you pick how far in advance you want that date to be?
Again, I think this goes back to you. This goes back to how prepared you are. This goes back to how well-oiled is your machine. So when people come to me and they want a total tune-up and they're already an established artist and they have a mailing list that they send out frequently and They have someone that's been helping them build that mailing list. We don't have to start from scratch and go through scraps of paper from bars and find email addresses to put on a mailing list. So if you have a well-oiled machine, it's different than if you really need to go back and do some foundational building. So I don't advise just throwing it up on the DSPs. I advise asking yourself, what are the different areas that are in my control, and making sure that you have enough time to get all that stuff together. So that the bad part about releasing music now, especially with Spotify, is you are expected to shock the Spotify algorithm. Do you know what that means? That means there's no magic Santa Claus in Spotify waiting for you to put your music up to make you famous. You need to bring all of your fans to that platform. You need to get them to pay attention to your song the day it goes out, and there's some really great tools that are free that can help you do that. Most artists I talk to are not aware of that, and they're scratching their heads wondering why they have 4 monthly listens on Spotify. It's because they didn't tell all of their fans to come to Spotify on a said day, which should be a Friday. Even if you only have a couple hundred fans and you can get them to pre-save your music on Spotify and it goes immediately streaming in their libraries on the day of release, you can shock the Spotify algorithm enough so that you can get added to some really good playlists. Your job, however, is not to just put it up on Spotify and pray. Unfortunately, because most of the music that's getting onto the playlists are distributed by the majors and are already at an advantage that you're not at as an indie, which sucks.
Okay, this is super interesting to me because I think traditionally most of us, all right, well, maybe, anyway, me, we assume that we pick a release date that's X number of weeks hence, and we focus all this effort on building attention for that day, building anticipation, getting everybody excited about the fact that that record's coming out on that day, because what we want to do is maximize sales, which in the old days is what it was all about. I guess it's probably safe to say for many of us, or at least in situations like mine, sales are not really the issue. We're not really planning on selling anything or making any money from it. We're putting it out because we're putting music into the world, and sales are not what we're necessarily expecting in return. So the question becomes, well, what difference does it make if we have a release day as opposed to a release month or a release year? And if I quietly put a song up on Spotify and then I gradually tell people, hey, yeah, I put this song up, it's great, you should go check it out. I mean, it's going to be there forever, so you can check it out whenever you like. You're saying that there's actually a strategic reason to get everybody thinking about going to that platform on that date and that time so that Spotify's computers get overrun.
How many people want to throw up right now? Yes, okay, but there's a caveat here.
Okay.
If you don't have a ton of fans, if you're not there yet, if you never want to be the boy who cried wolf. I think it's really hard to try to promote yourself as an artist without any music in the world. So we have to start somewhere. So for those of you that are maybe just putting something out or you have a new sound, it's okay to put something up on Spotify and not do what I just said. However, that is one strategy, and you should choose one single somewhere in your life and try the pre-save strategy. The money-making thing is also huge and important. You're not doing this for your health. You're doing this to make a living. So the pledge music thing is so devastating to me right now. I'm like so freaked out about it. Anyone here use pledge music or have done crowdfunding to fund your music? 1, that's it? 2, 3. Okay. So leading up to a release, yes, it's pretty obvious that people are not racing over to iTunes and buying your downloadable MP3s for $9.99. Most probably people have a subscription to Spotify or Apple, and you are not going to profit massively from your next release unless you plan. So I like the idea of pre-release campaigns where you can sell things. You can sell bundles of your music. You can sell little mini disc drives. You can sell t-shirts or yoga mats or hats or coffee mugs or whatever it is your tribe likes and wants. And you can bundle your music with those things, which is what Pledge Music did. It helped us to digitally bundle things, which was great. Unfortunately, it's not great this week because they just got in trouble for not paying artists. But there are a couple of other solutions I'm happy to share later on. But when you're releasing music, I believe that you should be paid for it. And if you have a fan base that is willing to pay for things like bundles or fun merch items or a record release show or going bowling with the band or on a pub crawl or a date at a coffee shop, there's so many things you can do that are creative around the release of your record to excite and inspire your fans to come enjoy your new music. So for example, I have a client who lives in a small town in Westchester. She's a mom. She had this dream of playing her record release show in Manhattan. It's 45 minutes away from everyone she's ever met. And I talked her out of it, and I said, why don't we find a small venue where all your friends can come on a night what's convenient for them. She found a little wine bar, and instead of doing a big record release party, on a 10 p.m. and a horrible 45-minute slot, which is the grind in New York, she invited everyone to the wine bar. She played the record. She had a listening party. All her friends had wine. Everybody bought the record. Everybody went home with an experience, and she had a really successful release. So there's a lot of things that you can do and she monetized. She got to keep the amount of money she made. So plenty of things that you can do to monetize a release. Unfortunately, in the age of Spotify, where everybody just gets it basically for free, and you get, was it 0.0008 of a cent, you definitely want them not to just go to Spotify. You want to come up with some other ideas that will pay you for your release.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. So I like the shock the algorithm. So let's stick with that one for now.
It is interesting, yeah.
So let's assume that there is a rationale, pick one, for choosing a date and time at which your music is going to be officially released. It will be made available to the world, and it can be one of these reasons. But the Spotify algorithm shocking is as good as any, as far as I'm concerned.
Indeed.
So you got to pick. The most important thing, I think, is to pick something and aim toward that, rather than it just being a random, anonymous, super quiet, no planning whatsoever. So we're going to stipulate that we're going to pick a date, we're going to pick a time, and we're going to work toward that. That's what this is all about.
Yes.
Okay. So can we just say that 3 months or 4 months is a legitimate time frame to plan on?
Absolutely.
And I mean, as you and I have been conversing in anticipation of tonight, we've talked about a bunch of different artists that we both know that we see when they are announcing that there's going to be a record release, they do it with gobs of lead time. Just yesterday, we were emailing about this band some of you may have heard of called the Dream Syndicate, which was big in the 80s, and now they're coming back and they're signed to Anti Records, and they announced on Facebook, here is our new single on our album, which is coming out in June. It's February. And they're telling us that the record is coming out in June. And all of the other bands that I pay attention to, it's the same story. They've been around for however long they've been around, but I've been knowing about February 20 release dates from these bands since October.
Right.
And they've been pushing that over and over and over again. So that tells me that people smarter than me know that you need to announce a date that's several months hence, not several days or several weeks, and you need to go through a whole bunch of steps to build anticipation for that, right?
Totally, yes.
Okay, well, let's talk about what those steps are, because I think that's what these people paid to see.
Is that what you paid to see? Let's do that. Okay, so I wrote a guide, by the way, which you should. It's very long. It's on my website, cyberprmusic.com. It's the marketing. There's a 3-piece article, and it breaks all of this down. So for those of you that are about to furiously take notes, you don't have to. I already did all that.
Can we show it on the website?
Sure. We're doing escape, command, is that right? Control right.
Help. Technical stuff. Oh, Jason. Oh.
This is my website. It's cyberpuremusic.com. And in my spare time, I like to write articles that help artists get ahead in the world. So right here on our most popular posts, you will see Musician's Guide to Marketing Plans. And in part 1, I talk about, I think this is a good place to start. This is how I see an artist's music career. This is how you should see your release career. You're in the middle, and there's a lot of pieces here. And I made a Venn diagram because artists are visual, and I realized it was really hard to explain all of this without this. But here's a lot of things that you do need to be paying attention to. Each part of this Venn diagram highlights what part of the article corresponds with it. So when you do
I
come to
noticed
the
that
website,
making money's on the bottom.
making money is a huge part. So how this works is you're here, and you start with these bits here, like your website and thinking about your brand and starting your social media, make sure your legal is in order, etc. Get your story right. This is really important. Having a signature story, it's not a bio. No one cares that you started playing piano when you were 3 and then you met your band members because you put an ad in Offbeat. Like that's a bio from the 90s that doesn't resonate anymore. So we have a new way that everyone is now absorbing every type of brand. And that is through storytelling, which that's what TED Talks mostly are, that this is the way that we're used to understanding things.
You're not referring to an Instagram story?
I am not.
Okay.
I am referring to something that is going to connect your audience to you, that is anecdotal. It doesn't have to be like, I had cancer and then I'm cured. It doesn't have to be huge and heart-wrenching or heavy, but it does have to be memorable. So you want to have a memorable story. So then moving out, these are other things that you need to begin to think about. And this is not hard and fast. Some people might be really good at a few of these domains, and that's all you'll need for a successful career. Don't look at this and go, oh my gosh. But yes, making money does come later on, because until you have fans that are willing to part with money, you're not making money. There's no magical. I love when artists call me, they're like, well, isn't there a venue where I could just go and there's like tons of people there waiting? I'm like, to see an unheard of band? No, you need to build an audience and bring them, unfortunately, to the venue. So in this marketing plan guide, I break down the first 5, the second 5, and the third 5, and there's a check sheet. You can download everything on my website. Obviously, we start with what Scott was just talking about, your distribution. We go through thinking about your brand, very important. Social media, something that can start right now. YouTube, understanding Spotify, Apple Music, and all the other digital services. And then moving on to, I have a lot of tips and links. And then this is the most important part, and this is the part most artists hate. This is building your newsletter. This is being in control of your audience. We have all seen what happened with MySpace, what happens with Facebook. No one sees when you post anymore. Plus they, I don't know, take over governments and throw elections and things. So we're not all excited about Facebook these days. This will also happen for Instagram. For those of you that are loving Insta right now and you love your IG feed and it's really easy to use, they will change and shift the rules on you there too. Facebook owns it. So the place where you're going to make money is in your email list. The typical newsletter that you may have started years ago that is boring, or you get newsletters from bands and you hate them, that's sort of an antiquated way of communicating nowadays. It's now about writing emails that are exciting and interesting to your fans and nurturing them. That's a whole seminar in itself, but it's something to be aware of.
Can we go back for a second?
Yes.
And you don't have to scroll, but you did scroll past something that I did think was important, and that was the whole bit about the DSPs and the PROs. Mm-hmm. So if we're building, or for those of us taking notes, a checklist of things to do, our to-do list in advance of our record release, mm-hmm. It seems to me that number 1 is registering your copyrights.
Yes,
So,
that's true.
Okay.
That's why legal is like right there in the middle of that. that Venn diagram.
And so everybody knows that especially if you write your own music and you're releasing your own recordings, that there are actually 2 copyrights that you need to register. You need to register the underlying composition, the performing artwork, and then you'll also need to register the ownership of that master recording, that specific recorded version of that material, which is the sound recording. Thank you. Idiom. Then I guess number 2 in my book would be register your songs with your performing rights organization, your ASCAP, your BMI, your CSAC. Maybe number 3 would be to make sure that your mechanical royalties, if you are doing cover songs, or even if not, making sure that all of that stuff is straight. So legal.
And make sure, like, the person that came into the studio that one night and recorded that thing has a contract. It doesn't come back to bite you in the ass when that song blows up, right? So that's another part of legal. It's just making sure everybody understands their role. And, always plan the terrible breakup, which we hope never happens, before the thing comes out, right?
Okay, then there's the digital service providers. So you want to have your account with, whether it's your CD Baby, your TuneCore, or DistroKid, or whichever service it is that you're going to use to digitally get your music out onto the or to all of the platforms, because you want to be everywhere. You want to not just be on Spotify. You want to also be on Apple Music and also on YouTube, Russian iTunes, whatever.
Russian iTunes, it's huge, everyone. Right, so you do want to be everywhere. There are 77 DSPs, which is kind of mind-blowing. DSP is Digital Service Provider. For those of you that don't know, that means Spotify, iTunes. It also means Pandora. It also means radio, like digital. There's some digital radio streaming sites. It's easy to forget. It also means Deezer. We don't really use Deezer here, but if you're in Europe, it's a whole different story.
Okay, so those are some of the more mechanical, the less exciting kinds of things, but they're also super necessary that one has to take care of.
They are.
But if we're thinking in terms of building excitement towards release day,
yes.
Okay, so let's keep our checklist going.
So if you look here, this is the second part of the marketing plan, and these are the things that you want to be thinking
That's
about.
what I'm talking about.
There we go. So it's
Timeline.
planning your rollout. I call it ordering the chaos because there's so many things to think about and lots of moving parts. So timeline is the first thing you want to do. You want to write out the timeline. What is my timeline? When is my first single coming out? When is
You mean actually write a timeline?
Yes.
Not just pretend that you have one in your head.
Right. Because a timeline is good because if you have...
I'm serious.
It's true. A timeline is great because if you have band members or team members or anyone that's helping you, this becomes their way of understanding and organizing for you.
Okay, this is the part that I remember from the website that I really dug. So 3 months before, what are the things that you need to be doing?
So we just talked about a PRO. I'm amazed at how many people call me and they haven't even chosen ASCAP or BMI yet. It's pretty standard, easy to do. Go to the website if you haven't done that. The second step in that is signing up for Sound Exchange. Sound Exchange will pay you royalties when you get on Pandora or any kind of streaming, radio, and that's nice mailbox money to have.
That one is actually so important. It so often gets left out of the conversations.
Yeah.
But wait, did you list registering your copyright?
I didn't. I at the beginning I say I'm not a lawyer, but you need to go to a lawyer even before you start this. So.
Okay. And I'm amazed, speaking of PROs, how many people, we just did a workshop on this a few weeks ago, and there were people who said, well, I registered my song with ASCAP, so therefore my copyrights are registered, right?
Wow.
No. So totally different.
So at this point, 3 months before something's coming out, I always try to say, and even before when you're in the studio, with social media, documenting the creation of your music and going behind the scenes and showing your fans what happened is important. So think about that as well. When a mixing board to you might not be interesting, but to your fans that don't spend their lives in a recording studio, that could be really fun or interesting. Also, if you want to think about partnerships and sponsorships down the line, taking photos of specific pedals or mics or guitars or equipment and tagging them in social posts is a great way to begin to show the world what you want to be aligned with. So never too early to start documenting your
even
process.
before the music is done, when you're
Absolutely.
in the studio, when you're creating the music, pictures, videos, that stuff
Go live
is...
on Facebook and sing a stanza or show a little bit of a session. There's so many things that you can do that are fun and interesting.
If you have any special guests in the studio, when Drake drops by to,
Yeah,
lay
you
a
want to
verse
make
down.
sure that Drake is recorded when he's been in the studio with you. That's crucial. The other thing to know too, especially if you're a little bit further ahead and you are going to be working with a PR firm or any type of marketing company, they need ample time. Really good PR firms sell out months in advance and are already planning. So you want to make sure that if you do have your heart set and you're going to make a huge investment, even though we just said not to do that at the beginning of this talk, some of you might be at that level, they might already be sold out many months in advance. And they have crazy schedules, especially around Grammys, or they might have artists at Jazz Fest or rolling out on huge summer tours, and they are planning in advance. So if you do have your heart set on working with a specific type of person or even a large playlisting company, you need to give them time because they need to put you on their schedule. So choosing a release date might also have to do with who is on your team and when do they have time to fit you in properly. Because they shouldn't just sign you up. It's not ordering a pizza, I want pepperoni. It's helping to plan something that's very, very important. So that's always a part that surprises me when I call publicists on behalf of my clients to try to get them a good match. Some of them are sold out 6, 8, 9 months in advance. You do want to think about your playlisting plan. You can, that's a whole other thing. We did talk about shocking the Spotify algorithm and driving people. 2 months before your music is out, you want to make sure that your album artwork is ready, that you've got new photos. If you're thinking about maybe what the album cover looks like, does your brand want to change slightly to go along with that? And I think that that's something you need to plan for. If all of a sudden, and I'm working with an artist, a band from New York called Please Please Me, their current release is all about them wearing black and white and red. And so their Instagram posts are black and white and red, their album cover artwork is black and white and red, and they're kind of doing a thematic thing that's great right now. They might not be doing that in a few months, but it takes time to get a lot of black and white and red outfits together and get photos and think about all of that stuff. And you do want to think visually, unfortunately. That is the Instagram world we're living in.
Wait, let me go back for a quick sec. So we started with 3 months out. When you pick a date, and okay, we know that we are now 3 months out from that date, is that when you want to announce what the date is?
If you have your ducks in a row and there's no surprises coming, yes, absolutely. However, a lot of times artists will call me and be like, but I already announced the date. And I often say, how many people really saw that? Can we backpedal a little bit? Can you apologize to the 5 people that really care and move the date up? And most of the time the answer is yes. For those of you that, a big problem I run into is if you've done a Kickstarter campaign or you've raised money and you've promised a date and then vinyl is going to take 4 months to press or something, that can be really painful. I find that most people that are willing to fund you on a crowdfunding campaign will also have empathy and be okay if you delay your release a little bit. But yes, wait until everything is ready, really, to announce that date.
Okay, so these bands that I'm seeing that are announcing the release of their records 4 months out.
That stuff is done, in the bag, album artwork, looks, brands, publicists are chosen, everything is on track. They have a record label, they have the privilege of planning.
Okay, the point being that you want to be able to give people plenty of time, or say it's coming out in 3 or 4 months from now, so that you have all that time to get everybody focused on that date and get them excited for it.
And especially your fans. Your fans are who you want to focus. And so it's amazing how many messages your fans are getting hit with every day. They're on all types of social channels, they're busy, they're working. you think that you've maybe shouted from every rooftop forever that the thing is coming out, and they still don't know. If any of you have ever run a crowdfunding campaign, you realize this because people call you after it's over and they're like, where do I send the check? And you're like, are you kidding? All I did was scream about this for 30 days. How did you miss it? That's just typical. People will miss things. This is another reason why having a lot of time is great, because people don't see every post that you post or read every newsletter that you send or respond to every time you're on IG, right? So giving them ample time, telling them many different ways to expect this. And you have to ask many different ways, and you're asking different fans for different things. A casual fan on your social media will expect to get your music very, very differently. They'll probably go to Spotify. Than your super fan who's like going to be in the front row at your release show and is going to buy the hoodie and the t-shirt and the bundle and everything. They're just different fans.
Okay, so what's next?
You want to really think about, where is your audience, and do you have your arms around them? And are they in your control? A lot of times, the most obvious fans are your best friends, your family, your mom, those super fans in the audience. And it's amazing how many times artists forget about those people because they're so worried about the millions or billions of people that are out there. It's very hard to focus on what's right in front of you. So you want to make sure that you are not forgetting your people, because your people is where it all starts. So you want to make sure that you are focused on increasing your audience. Depending on which social channel you like, you want to have ample time to dedicate. If any of you have ever tried to just get organic followers on social, it takes time. If any of you have entered dozens of email addresses into your MailChimp, it takes time. So you want to make sure that you're gathering your tribe. I also think in the world of day jobs and being busy and having many, many things, you want to make sure that you're prepping your content calendar. So for those of you that have a release coming out on a specific Friday, you could do a countdown, 10 days, 9 days, 8 days, however you want to do it. For those of you that have causes or charities or special things that your music is aligned with, a lot of times you want to choose your release date around what's significant for you as an artist. Do you want to release during Black History Month? Do you want to release during National Autism Month? Do you want to release during Mental Health Awareness Month? Your music might reflect, and that's a way of really putting your music out during a time when the media is hungry and interested in it. So if you've written a song about your journey through depression, or you've written a song about your friend who committed suicide, you might want to look at when the best times to put music out like that will be for the media. Last year, I worked an album for the Nadas. One of the lead singers wrote a beautiful song for his son, who's highly autistic, and we planned several months in advance for National Autism Month, and it was unbelievable. Everyone pretty much that I pitched the story of Henry James to, writers came back to me saying, oh, my niece, oh, my nephew, oh, my son. We got so much press because we just thought about when to put that out. He had written Henry James. We could have put it out anytime. Luckily, I planned to do it during that month. So you want to think about that too. You want to think about, when is it right in the world for you to put out your music? Veterans Day, maybe it's not heavy. Maybe you don't make music that's like soul moving like that. Mardi Gras is a great day, party day. I don't know. You have to think about what is right for your audience and what fits your story.
I would think in New Orleans, Ash Wednesday is a better day to put it out than Mardi Gras Day.
That's true. Everybody's really partying on Mardi Gras. But, people say to me, like, well, I don't have music that should come out on a heavy day. That's okay. Find, I don't know, National Go to the Beach Day. Maybe that's good for your music. There's a stupid holiday for everything now. It's great.
Let's go back to your content calendar, because I think that's a phrase that a lot of people might not be familiar with. So can you explain what a content calendar is? And I can see you're listing a few things in here that would qualify as content. So this is kind of like a timeline. It's like you're going to do this at this time, this at this time. So let's just sort of dig in on some of those things, like the art reveal, for example, or a list. So how would you organize that into a content calendar?
So Gary Vaynerchuk, if that's your dude, or any kind of fancy, big, expensive advertising / social media companies, this is how they work. They take out calendars and they literally calendar all of the content for all of their clients, whether their clients are Pepsi, Jazz Fest, or an independent artist, or a guru. Oprah has a content calendar, and they begin to fill it for you. And you can do the same for yourself. I actually have a tracker, you can download it, and you can begin to think, what are the days that are significant for me? If animal rescue is a big deal for you, I just went online today, and today is, I think, National Love Your Pet Day. Well, today's a great day if that's part of your brand to schedule something. So there's tons of calendars which will tell you all of these different days, and you can begin to plug those days in. If a specific artist totally inspired you, or you covered a song by Ella Fitzgerald, look up her birthday and make sure you prepare a post on that day. So this is what content calendaring is all about. It's about just thinking ahead. I think it's much easier to shine a light on other people on social media than it is to just consistently talk about yourself, me, my release. So when you're content calendaring, think about what's interesting to you. Tattoos, crochet, animals, I don't know, everybody can come up with something that's unique and special and different and perfect for them. And there's always ways to build a content calendar around.
So when you say a content calendar, you're talking about social media content.
I am.
So you're talking about basically a calendar of your social media posts.
Yes.
And on this week, I'm going to make a post about, hey, here's the album artwork.
Right.
And on this week, I'm going to make a post about, this is the date and time of our record release party.
Right.
Etc. So,
or maybe it's Man Crush Monday, maybe it's Wine Wednesday, maybe it's Media Monday. I don't know. You can do themes as well. Throwback Thursday, you've got a lot of archive old material you want to bring to the forefront. Flashback Friday. So there's themes you can do, and you can begin to train your audience to expect that. I have worked with a small band out of the Napa. They live up in Napa. They love drinking wine, and they made Wine Wednesday. They would pour a bottle of wine between the two of them. They went on a live stream. They'd taste the wine, talk about the wine, and sing songs in between. They started getting, this is amazing. They're just a married couple, like they didn't have a fan base. He worked at Apple Music. They just like making music. They got 7 or 8 different vineyards started sending them wine because they loved the Wine Wednesday that they were doing. So that's content calendaring. That is like thinking of something that's relevant and fun and bringing your fans along for a journey.
Wow. Okay, so the theme that's emerging for me is timelines, calendars, planning, making a checklist, putting dates by each thing, saying, okay, I'm going to do this on that day, this on that day, which most of us
don't do.
Most of us don't
do. We're so
do.
busy. And then you're sitting going, oh gosh, I have not posted on Instagram in 3 days. I have to come up with something. And you're frantically going through your photos, making a mess of your social media because there's no theme and it's not cohesive. So it's really great when you can begin to get out ahead of that and go, okay, here's my signature filter. Maybe everything wants to be black and white. Maybe everything wants to have crazy saturated colors. Maybe you have a certain way that you photograph things. I would also advise you, even if you like a certain type of thing, if it's not easy to post that thing, don't. I had a woman last year, she's like, I love traveling. I'm like, oh, great. She's like, I want traveling to be part of my social media content calendar. I said, great, where are you traveling to? She's like, oh, I don't travel. And I was like, okay, well then not a good theme, right? So we actually came up.
I like the idea of travel.
Right. I would like to travel, but that's not easy. But if you're on the road all the time and traveling is part of your story, then you've got something to do, right? You can take photos.
So what are some of the other kinds of things that could go into a content calendar? When you're making your list, okay, in 19 days, I'm going to make a social media post about X. What are some of the other kinds of things that you could use for fodder?
So if you have a history, I always love TBTs and Flashbacks Fridays. Those are great times to repost videos that you've already made, repost old photos, even going back to like yourself at 3 with your piano. I mean, there's so many fun things that you can do to get into those conversations. Commemorative days, if veterans are important to you, or if sacrifices for our country are important to you, or if Margarita Day is important to you, whatever it is, you can content calendar that out, get that on your calendar. Obviously, single release, very important. Planning for that, revealing the artwork, revealing your new brand look. You can even post when you've like redesigned your website and be, hey everyone, I've got a new look. And that's a social post.
So I noticed that one of the things that you haven't mentioned is, oh, and the record release date is. And then again, the record release date is, and just keep saying that over and over and over, because I guess people are going to want to smack you if that's all you ever do.
I think whenever you have a reaction, and I mean a bad one, to social media, or you see something you don't like, it's always because you've seen and focused on someone who's doing it horribly. And those people are usually just shouting their thing, and that's what's turning you off. 9 times out of 10, when I talk to artists that are like, well, I hate social media, I'm like, let me guess why. You're either really private, you haven't figured out how to come up with this type of a calendar system, so you're stressed out about it all the time, or you actually don't like what you see other artists doing, and you're reacting to that. And that makes perfect sense.
So could a strategy be, if you know that your record release date is March 19th or whatever, that in your calendar, every 4th or 5th or 6th post could be, don't forget, record release is March 19th, but in between then, you're doing other fan building and audience building type stuff that you can tag with a hashtag, and you can say, this is my wine shot, or this is us,
Here's my dog, whatever it is, whatever the thing is that works for you. Right.
But as far as, because I think a lot of people are also mystified by this whole concept of audience building online, because it is interesting. If you have a social media account, as you see your ticks increase, when you see your number of followers increase, they're finding you some kind of way. So when you post about your dog or your bottle of wine or your new T-shirt or whatever it is, if you add the right hashtag, other people may come across you that wouldn't necessarily have found you another way.
That's true.
Is there any validity in working with other folks that you know to get them to post about you and vice versa, to sort of exchange posts and links and that type of thing?
Of course, just like gig swapping. It's great to do that on socials as well. You don't want to force it, but if someone truly inspires you, or if you're on tour with someone, or if someone opened for you, I think it's really lovely to shine a light on another artist. In fact, the other day, I opened up a newsletter from an artist that I represented a couple of years ago. The whole newsletter was not about her. It was about her best friend, Amy Spees, and Amy just launched a crowdfunding campaign. And she just was like, hey, y'all, I don't have much going on right now. My album's out. Please come check out my girl, Amy. And it was like a lovely way of shining a light on a friend and helping her. So there's all kinds of things that you can do to partner up, tagging people. And tag people you know. Don't tag
Drake.
I mean, tag Drake, but tag people you know. It's a great thing to do.
So what I'm getting out of this is that you want to remind people often enough what your release date is, so that you continue to build focus toward that, and you ramp that up gradually as the date gets closer. But in the meantime, you want to maintain a consistent social media presence, hitting people with various reminders. Yes, I'm still here. Yes, I'm doing interesting things. And along the way, dribble out cool teasers, like this is the artwork, or here's a single, or a snippet of a single, or something.
Taylor Swift did something really cool before she released her last record that her fans went wild over, which is she just wrote out a couple of lyrics every couple of days and showed them, and her fans were like, ooh, what is the song going to be about? You can do that. You could do like a lyric reveal, or you could say something like, you'll never guess who came into the studio with me, and then post a photo. There's 100 different ways to get people to become aware that you have a release without consistently saying February 25th, right? Over and over and over. I think that's where it gets redundant.
but it does seem that having something to reveal is one of the keys toward building excitement. So if it's a new T-shirt design, I mean, or a new logo, or a new photo of you or of the
Absolutely.
band, as having little tidbits to drop along the way is one way to continually engage and get people thinking about you without having to just continually say February 25th, February 25th, February 25th.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely.
If only I could remember to do all this stuff.
I
That'd
know.
be great.
I know. So 6 weeks before release, I would say that's a good time. You don't want anything going crazy with your distributor, even though pretty much they get everything up really fast. But sending it to them, picking that date is key. You might want to launch a Facebook like campaign, or you might want to spend a little bit of money on some advertising to begin to build anticipation.
All right. So what do you mean by a Facebook like campaign? Hey, everybody, like my page?
More like, this is the thing, and a lot of us, again, are feeling a bit not excited about Facebook. However, I have still been discovering that when you're going to book, or when you're going to a festival, or when you're going to someone that is not aware of you, the numbers still matter. So I often find that artists are trying to get themselves to the next level or get a certain person to come on board. And when you have fewer than 5 or 10,000 likes on your Facebook page, that can be difficult. So you might want to spend a little bit of money driving some likes to your Facebook page just so it doesn't look like there's no one there. I wouldn't game the system and buy 350,000 fake likes. However, you do want to show that you have a well-rounded social media presence. I've seen many, many times, and so have you, something will be super off, like someone will have like 1 million plays on a video. We all know that if you have 300 fans across all your social channels and 1 million plays on a video, you paid someone to do something shady. Everyone in the business knows that. You're not kidding anyone. But it is important to grow your social channels consistently. Even if it's by 100 every time you put a single out, that's a good goal, but you do want to always be growing. So that could be something you might want to focus a little bit of attention on.
All right, so now we're getting into the meat of it here. Release your first single.
I think you should not only release one single before a record, which is how we kind of used to do it back in the day. So 1 month before release, only if you're releasing one single, but you do want to get out ahead of your release by at least a month. I would say actually try to release more than one. And again, the reason for that is every single should have a different reason for being put out in the world. That makes sense, right? You release it, you explain what album is coming, what the reason for it is. You can hype up that date. And then there's a lot of things that you can do to get attention around that release. How many of you are familiar with Submit Hub? Anyone? A couple people. So there's a website called Submit Hub, and it's not appropriate for every genre of music, but if you're making electropop, pop, super indie rock, if you're making like jazz or you're a straight up singer-songwriter in a folk genre, don't go to this website. Probably won't help you. But it's wonderful. You can submit directly to music blogs through this portal. It'll cost about $1 per submission, and it's basically you're doing PR, and you could end up on a really good music blog with a great write-up. So that's one thing that you would want to give yourself a month before release to do, because it could take the music blog several days or weeks to schedule the post about you. So that would be something that you might want to plan.
If your release that you're building toward is a single as opposed to an album, could you put up little 10-second excerpts of the song with a photo or a quick video or something to say, hey, got this new single coming out February 19th.
Did anyone, I always like
Here's
to...
a taste.
It's great. I always like to look at what some of the biggest, most branded artists are doing, because they have teams of people that are doing this, and a lot of them are doing a great job. So you might not love Ariana Grande. She might not be your girl. However, the way she releases things on Instagram before to tease is brilliant and beautiful and works really well for her brand. So just think about, who do you like that's put music out into the world, and how are they doing it? And the thing that's so cool about social media, the internet in general, is everybody is leaving breadcrumb trails, and you can kind of, I don't want to say copy what they're doing, but you can borrow extensively and become inspired and see, what does it look like when someone has 50 people on their team, what are they putting out, and how can you do things a bit like that?
But with all these things, what we're talking about is essentially content of some sort or another. If it's a snippet of a single, T-shirt artwork, album artwork,
Boomerangs, photos, behind the scene things.
all
Absolutely.
of this stuff. So these are all things, and you can schedule out 4 or 5 weeks out. Okay, on next Wednesday, I'm going to put out something on this. On the following Tuesday, I'm going to do that, just as a way to stay on top of it, so that when you do go ahead and post, it's with a strategy that you've at least spent 5 minutes thinking about, rather than, oh my God, it's Wednesday, I need to come, like you said earlier, I haven't posted in 3 days, I need to come up with something, and so you come up with something
Right,
lame.
and then it sucks because you were stressed and you didn't, and also planning hashtags takes some time. So for those of you who are hashtag whores, there's a whole new sheriff in town at Instagram. You no longer want to put 30 hashtags. If you didn't know that, now you do. You post a photo on Instagram. You should put no more than 1 or 2 hashtags in your text of your post. And then the first comment should have about 10, 15 at the most. But it does take time to research which hashtags of those 15 are good. And it's not necessarily great to research the largest hashtags that have numbers in the millions. You might want to go drill down a lot more. Even if there's only a couple hundred, those could be the right couple of hundred. So I noticed that Sync Up NOLA has maybe 300 posts, but that was the perfect thing for me to post when I was posting about coming here, because those 300 other pieces of content are directly related to this event. So it's perfect. So don't get so freaked out about, like, oh, I have to post like big major things like Los Angeles or whatever. Go more specific.
Okay, great.
So obviously around the release of a single, it's nice to have a live show or some sort of thing that is out in the world commemorating it. So you definitely want to announce that as well. If you have a listening party or an event, I'm not sure how many of us are that excited to have a record release be like the 3rd slot on a 6 slot lineup on a Tuesday at 10 p.m. So maybe try to do something a little bit more special. I know in New York and here, when you got a ton of venues and there's a lot of bands that can go on, it becomes less special, and it's hard to get your fans to come out. So think of something unique and special.
If you're going to call it a record release party, really make it a party.
That's right.
And make it something that people will come to. So, like you said, maybe not do it in the middle of the night. Do it on a Sunday afternoon.
Right. Throw a barbecue. You know, there's so many things that you can do, which I think make it special and different. It just, again, that takes planning and thinking. But plenty of businesses out there are looking for people to come through the door. It's amazing when you begin to think about collaborating with other people, what you can do, and not be at a club at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday.
Cool. Okay, so we're getting close. So wait, launch your music PR or playlisting campaign.
So like I said, Submit Hub is a great place to do that. You live in a really great town that embraces local artists. I imagine you all know how to get to Offbeat and Where You At and the few important newspapers, WWOZ, if that's appropriate for you. Begin to let the people in your community know that you're there. If you do want to try to, if you do have a PR firm, they will take care of all that stuff, but you can do a lot on your own. And then it's about building momentum. You're moving into really getting excited. And there's a lot to do on release day. And if you look on this blog post, you can download this. You want to prep your website. It's pretty amazing how you can forget to do that. You announce all over socials, forgetting that people might come back to your website, and you've forgotten to put on your website out now or coming out on this day. You want to skin all your socials with the new brand, with the new album artwork, with the new look. That takes time. And I just have a checklist for each social channel, different things that you can do. Maybe put the link to your new music in your bio, etc. There's a lot to do. And I think one of the most important things to do, especially, is prepare that email newsletter. Let your fans know, today's my big day. Here's how you can help me. I find audiences are your fans because they want to help you, but most of them don't know how. So you need very much to show them what to do. Hey everyone, my record is out now. Would you tweet this out and put 3 or 4 different Twitter ideas if Twitter's your thing? Or, hey, my album is out now. Would you mind sharing this with your friends? Here's a link. But letting your audience know how they can help you is tremendous. For any of you, if you're on any kind of political, like if you're on the Move On website, the way that they do this is brilliant. They inspire you to pass on the word. Take notes there. It's pretty amazing. But you want to ask your fans to take an action. So whether that's pre-saving you at Spotify, whether that's pressing subscribe on your YouTube channel, whether that's liking you on Facebook, when you send your email, be very clear about what it is you want them to do around the release of that specific single. And don't make them do many things. Ask for one thing at a time. This is another reason why singles are great with one purpose. Because if you give people too many choices, statistics show all the time they don't know what to choose and they choose nothing. So you give them the one choice. Here's the button to press to help me. I would recommend that.
So if you're going to send that call to action out in an email, is it fair to say that you would want to reinforce that message across your various social media platforms at the same time? So
absolutely.
So the day before the record release, would you want to be doing posts on your socials saying, tomorrow's the day at 11 a.m. Central Time, I need all of you to click on this link at Spotify. And if you all click on this link at the exact same time, we will break the machine and I'll become famous.
I wouldn't do that. I would do a pre-save. But yes, I mean, you have to remember, you're musicians and you're in this all the time with other musicians. Fans don't think like musicians. They really don't even know the value of a Spotify pre-save campaign. So I find you just have to educate them. Like, you press this little button here, this helps me and here's why. And you don't have to say it in like a beggy, weird, carnival barky way. Say it however it makes you feel good to say it. But just explaining to your fan, this basically is nothing for you. You're going to press this little link. It means everything to me. Because if 3 or 4 or 500 of you do this, I actually have a shot at being seen on this crazy platform. So just, people like to help. They can easily do that from their smartphone or from behind their computer keyboard, but not unless you specifically explain why.
Right on. Okay. So I'm feeling like we should probably try to get to some audience questions.
Yeah, it's all there on my site. You don't need to go through the whole thing now, but I think we got the gist of 12 weeks is a great amount of time, and there's lots of different avenues and paths to take to plan.
Okay, well, you all took the trouble to come out in the rain, so I'm hoping that somebody has a question for...
And if, ladies, you can tell me how to make your hair not look like this in New Orleans, I would like that question answered. Thanks.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, all right. I'm going to go ahead and play Dr. Phil over here. All right, first you and then you.
Hi, Ariel. Thanks for sharing everything. It was quite helpful. You mentioned videos as a great way to get traction. And I'm actually someone who works with bands to make videos.
Great.
So I was curious, what do you consider a great video in general, and maybe 1 or 2 examples of something that really worked for that release?
I think we all know videos are not what they used to be. I mean, I grew up in the 80s. They were like making $1 million videos every week. It was like a crazy time. I don't think fans are expecting that anymore. Again, I think video is a very personal thing. It has to reflect what is right for you and your music. You also have to reflect what's right for your budget. So, I mean, I've seen plenty of artists make really great videos by splicing together found footage or footage from their iPhones, and it looks just as good as spending 20 grand on a huge video. So I wish there was a hard and fast answer for that. I think you have to know your audience. You also have to know what, I hate this word, but I don't know another word. You have to know what's in the zeitgeist of what the music is that you're making. So hip hop music looks a specific way, and jazz music looks a specific way, and indie folk rock looks a specific way. Don't go doing something that's wildly divergent from the way that it looks, because audiences expect hip hop to look a certain way. So again, don't copy, but think about what are people doing in your world, and can you do something that's a little bit like that, considering fans of a certain genre expect it to be delivered in a certain way. That was not really an answer, but videos are very important, obviously, and do make them.
Did you have a question?
Yes. Legal, you said, was so important. What are the, I would say maybe the 5 most important legal issues to take care of?
I am not a lawyer. This is actually the place where I am the most embarrassed. There are a few lawyers in the room here, but I think Scott covered pretty much. You want to make sure your copyrights.
Copyrights are number one. Always register for the performing artwork, the underlying composition, and also the sound recording.
Making sure everyone on your team has a contract, or if you're using work for hire, so no one comes out of the woodwork going insane when the song goes well or doesn't. What else? Yes, Suzette, what else? I don't know. Yes, the song split sheets.
The songwriter agreement, who owns what percentage of a song?
It's a work for hire, which I euphemistically call a talent invoice, that says that whoever creatively contributes to the work does not own that sound recording master. Otherwise, everyone who creatively contributes owns a share equal to the number of people. So if 5 people are on it, that each own 1/5. You don't want that to happen. You want to be in control of the ownership of the master. So the song ownership agreements and the talent invoices to me are the most important.
Register with Sound Exchange. Register with your go ahead.
Don't just join ASCAP or BMI.
Right.
Actually put the song related to your account. Otherwise, people tell me, oh, I joined ASCAP, but I never got a penny. I said, well, did you register the song? And they're like, no, was I supposed to do that too?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, how is ASCAP supposed to know that you're related to that song? That's a huge mistake. It's really common.
And another one for those of you that play out, every time you play out, you have to register that show with ASCAP and BMI, because you actually get paid when you perform. So that's important as well.
Hold on, we have one back here.
Hi, thank you so much for all this insight and wisdom.
Sure.
This question is kind of a little bit further down. You obviously have strong belief in email. So I guess the first question that I was thinking about initially was, how can I grow my band's email list? Some of the things that I've done include some of the things that a lot of people in the room would probably have done, is have that clipboard out next to your merch, get people to sign up. You mentioned it, you direct them to it. I've also posted about having a mailing list on my social media and had direct messages come in, and I just kind of log people in there.
That's amazing.
But my question is really what are some proactive ways that I can use the online space to build, or not even online space necessarily, how do I build a mailing list? And so one thing that I know for sure, maybe it's already in your head, is this idea of gatekeeping, kind of creating a downloadable. People come to your site,
Right.
they want to download this
Right.
thing, give me your email for this downloadable.
Right.
So the first part of the question, sorry, this is so long. The first part of the question is, what kind of downloadables can you envision for bands or someone that's working in music? And then what other ways beyond a downloadable can you think of to build a mailing audience outside of doing an actual show?
So I think we're beyond the point of anyone caring about a downloadable MP3, right? However, it's not about the download, It's about the gift. It's about the thought. It's about the fact that you're saying, I'm giving you something in return for something. So providing a download is nice. Providing a lot of downloads, like you get all of my back catalog, I think could be a very creative way of getting people to sign up. Other things I've seen artists do, which I think are really cool, is there's an exclusive video that's special that you can only access if you join a mailing list. Or there's, most of you probably don't blog or write, but I have worked with some artists that write poetry or share artwork. Like one of them is a painter, and she shares an MP3 file of like these beautiful paintings. So visual pieces or exclusive photographs. You can offer almost anything. Wallpaper, if you have that kind of a fan base. I mean, not everybody does, but you do want to offer something in exchange for your email. One thing, this is so obvious and people forget it all the time, is to take time every month, sit down, look in your inbox. It is full of gold. People that you email all day, every day, most of them may not even be on your email list. You cannot just sign them up and stick them in your MailChimp. You could get flagged for spamming. But to take a good amount of time every month to say, hey, Michael, so great to meet you at that event. Would it be okay if I add you to my mailing list? This is the way that I tell my fans about what I'm up to. I won't spam you. I won't sell. I only communicate a few times a year. Whatever it is, you say it the way you want. Click here and allow them to opt in. And it's amazing how many, by just asking nicely, how many people are going to be delighted to be on your mailing list. So actually taking the time, it's a pain in the ass, but it works. One other tool I love for those of you that make the right music, they don't accept everyone, is noisetrade.com. They actually have something called New and Notable. It costs $250. If NoiseTrade accepts you, and there's information on their website, you pay $250 and they send your track to 1 million music fans. Hundreds of them will sign up to be on your mailing list. So noisetrade.com if you have $250.
So dealing with the mailing list, once you have the mailing list, you talked about nurturing your audience. How do you do that without being annoying?
Okay, so I recently taught a lab with a woman who is unbelievable at this. Is the camera still rolling? Are we still streaming? Yes. Okay. She's gonna kill me. Okay, her name is Cheryl B. Engelhart. She is masterful at communicating with her fans using email nurturing. Another person who is masterful is Amy Speace, AMYSPEACE.
What's the last name?
Speace, like peace, but with an S. Another woman who is masterful is Kira Small, KIRASMALL. Those are 3 people's mailing lists that I would just sign up, take a look. In the industry, traditionally, there has been someone wildly celebrated for their emails. It is Emily from Metric, brilliant at writing emails. I think when you're thinking about email nurturing, do not just be like, hey, everyone, I have a show. Come to my show. It's at Tipitina's. It's at 10 o'clock. Right? Nobody wants that email. They don't want it. Telling a story. You're musicians. You tell stories, but then you write these horrible emails that make people want to stab a pen in their eye and delete. So you do want to put some thought into. I had an artist years ago. Her newsletter every month was called The Most Beautiful Thing. And she just wrote a beautiful post about what she thought was the most beautiful thing. So it was
delightful.
was lovely. It doesn't fit everyone's thing, if might not be your thing, but she would write the most beautiful thing is this mountain I climbed. The most beautiful thing is my new baby. The most beautiful thing is this jambalaya I just ate. I don't know, whatever. She would write a whole thing and people loved it. So that's one thing to do.
Right on. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, you talked about playlist, which to me, I guess now is the modern compilation, maybe, because I know I discovered so much music with compilations like Putamaya,
Of course.
and all. So, any advice on how to get on playlists besides obviously people putting it on, but or maybe even compilation CDs?
Yeah, so yesterday's compilation CD / mixtape is today's playlist. So I think artists that make playlists and update their playlists often and share them, that's huge. It's huge in hip hop, huge in electro. I think every artist should make playlists. Put who inspired you, put other artists in your tribe, put artists you play with, shine a light on others, and share those playlists. Because if you can curate a playlist and put your own music in it and share it with your fans, it's a great way of getting people to maybe label mates or people that you sound like or inspire you. I mean, there's 100 different ways to do that.
Thanks.
So you mean creating your own playlist on Spotify or Apple Music and literally sharing that link across your socials and through an email or whatever?
And not even for an email, but just to get in community with your, music fans are out there and they love sharing music. That's true.
Questions? Anybody else? Okay.
Yes. Are websites as important today as they used to be with all the social media? Do people really pay attention to websites as much with Instagram and Facebook and tweeting and...
So that's a really interesting question. You do need a website today. The reason why is that's your shingle that you own, that you hang out, that says this is where I live. As we know, these social sites could change the rules. I mean, the government could shut Facebook down. We don't know what could happen. So if you put all your eggs in those baskets and then those algorithms change, you could get in trouble. I don't think you need to build a $5,000 website that has bells and whistles and is crazy and has back in the day, I think we spent a lot more money on websites. I think having just a simple basic site, you can use Bandzoogle, you can use HostBaby, you can use Wix, there's a ton of ways to build an affordable, elegant website, but do look at what the trends are. Right now, what's really trendy in websites is big images, photographs on the main page. You don't want to have too much going on. You want it to be simple. So yes, have a website.
On that subject, I would just share as a talent buyer, somebody who hires bands for festivals. If I'm new to your band and I Google you, and the only thing I can find is a Facebook page and there's no website, you're not legit.
Yeah.
You're not pro. So you got to have a website, otherwise you're not pro, in my opinion.
There you go.
Thank you.
I think a lot of times too, we think, I don't like that, the people that I know don't like that, the bands that I play with don't do that. That is not normally what a booking agent thinks. You always have to be thinking about, who am I selling this to? So I think that's, listening to Scott is important on that one.
Hi, I'm a studio musician and I don't really play live. Do you work with artists who only produce music and who don't play in a live environment? And any tips on how to incorporate this into that?
A lot of what we talked about with the content calendar, you still need to get gigs. And what we're learning about, especially millennials and younger, they live and die on social media. And if you're not there, you're not getting the gig. So even though it might feel uncomfortable and it's not the thing that you might do, I think really working on a social media schedule, calendar, do it the way you would do it, go behind the scenes, right? Maybe I'm in this studio recording today, here's the microphone of the week. I don't know, you could come up with so many different ways of showcasing that you are a studio musician. I think that's very exciting for other artists looking for studio musicians. They're looking for you. So putting yourself in harm's way on social would be a great strategy.
But as a studio musician, do you still release your own music? Yes. Okay, so all this stuff still applies, except the gig part. Okay, that's fair. All right, yes, question over here. Former Sync Up panelist over here.
Yay.
How you doing? As a hip hop artist, when I work with a lot of different producers and band members and different artists on the music I make, sometimes I get confused as far as the standard for the song splits, or what am I doing with the publishing, or, and when it comes down to negotiating, it's hard for me to really know exactly what's standard for this person's, whatever they contributed to the album or the song.
So again, I am not a lawyer. I never would dish out legal advice. I unfortunately cannot answer that with any kind of comprehensive answer. But Suzette is sitting right there, and there's probably other lawyers to ask. Sorry.
To me, the hook is, I'm not a songwriter. I wish I were. You have no idea how much I envy you that have talent like that. To me, the hook is really, really important. But a lot of times people just equally divide it up. I mean, but to me, the parts, the verses or the hooks or something, usually it's 50-50 on the music and the lyrics, and then you divide up among that. But also the melody itself, someone can come up with the music. But if the person that came up with the lyrics also did the melody, then they really deserve part of the music, if not all of the music, but that gets really controversial.
And when would you mimic that when it comes to publishing? When do you, the split exactly?
That's exactly, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Say you have 4 people, say you have one person who wrote the hook, and then other people come in and do verses. If somebody just did 1 verse, but somebody else did 2 verses, then it's not my call. It's whoever wrote the song's call. I always tell them, you guys need to decide this yourselves.
From the beginning, that's why I get it.
Yeah. It's really, and it's not only just evenly dividing it the way you think it's fair. A lot of times it's doing what politically will help you in the next time you write a song with that person. So you might say, let's split all of them 50-50. Sometimes you'll have written 90% of it, but that way, it's like buying a lottery ticket, okay, in a group. All right.
One thing, the writing part just reminded me, I dragged 5 books in my carry-on bag. If anyone would like my book, Crowd Start, which is all about how to fund your next release, I am selling them. So I have 5 of them. I will autograph them. I just realized I'm not dragging that plastic bag of books back through the rain. So if anybody would like one, that's my thing to say.
Okay, another question over here.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi.
Hey. So we always see artists trying to not only break into their market and find fans in their close area, but also like breaking into other states and into other like just cultures of music. Do you ever see a lot of bands or artists reaching into like UK markets, and what is your opinion on that? Like before conquering home.
Yeah, that's a strategy, right? And that's one that is still utilized to this day. You know, we're huge in Canada, right? It actually can work. I work with a lot of music export offices, like doing international, bringing artists here for their first and second time, and that is a strategy. They know that if they can create a buzz for their band from Australia in the United States, the Australian music industry pays attention in a different way. So yes, it certainly can be a strategy, and I think we've seen over and over, especially the UK connection, you just have to be very careful with who you're strategizing with in the UK. But yes, that can certainly work. I wish there was some sort of playbook where I could go, here's the 10 things to do. I think every artist has a unique and special journey depending on what kind of music they make, etc. But yes, that is a strategy that absolutely could work.
Hi, so I've recently started doing social media for a local band, and I feel like the issue that I've come into contact with them is that they don't know their brand that well. So like in my struggle of developing their content calendar and everything, how do you pull that out of a client as a PR consultant?
That is actually why I get paid well. It's a gift and a talent you have to hone. I would start reading a ton of articles, not in our industry, about branding, about identifying branding, about how to brand, and you have to begin to come up with your own way. I have a very specific, I have a 15-page foundations document that when you pay me to handle your social media, I force you to fill it out. I want to know what your favorite color is. I want to know all of this stuff about you, because it is very hard, especially when an artist has never thought about brand, to hone in on that. So
do you feel like through interviews with the different band members or just like observing them to get that?
Yeah, but I mean, how much are they really paying you, right? So that can be really time consuming. Yeah. But yes, that's a great way to do it. They also have to do some soul searching. Like No one can brand you. People can help you. But a lot of this, I mean, unless you're like Clive working with Alicia, that she was produced and branded by someone else, and look at her reaction to that all these years later. She's like, no more makeup, no more this, no more that. That was never her brand. So that can be a problem when you try to force a brand onto someone. When you do a huge record deal like that, unfortunately, sometimes you don't get to choose. But I think why we're so connected to these new up-and-coming artists that are exciting and interesting, like a Post Malone or like a, what's that girl that eats the spiders? She eats spiders. What's her name? 14 years old. Everyone freaked out about her. Amazing.
Oh, Billie Eilish?
Yes, Billie Eilish. She's got such a sense of style and brand and who she is. Like, what a phenomenal. Maggie Rogers, same thing. She was like, you can't make that stuff up. That is why fans gravitate towards those people. There's a brand. They're doing something exciting and special with their brand. So you need to really talk to your clients about, you know, especially in today's crazy IG world, unfortunately, a brand is not a dirty t-shirt, right? A brand has to be a brand. And it doesn't mean go, you know, make something up that's not authentic to who you are, but you do have to think about that. And I can always smell when you see like a band that hired a stylist and it doesn't quite look right, it looks forced and horrible. You want to make sure you're not doing that with your clients. It's very hard to get your brand right. But the more you get to know them and the more you see what they like, this is why most of these crappy social media companies that you hire to like do your thing for $200 a month suck. And they will never build your brand well because they're just throwing more stuff in the mix. They're not working on your brand.
Anybody else? Okay. Getting my exercise tonight.
You're welcome. This is probably a bit of a trite question compared to everyone else, but my brain decided to focus on it, so I'm going to ask it anyway. I didn't get the memo. Why the hashtags on the first comment on Instagram?
Because.
Okay, thank you.
No, I mean, I could go into the whole stupid algorithm thing. You don't want to know, but I mean, basically, you don't want to cloud your posts with a ton of hashtags because you look terrible and desperate. A. B. The way that Instagram reads hashtags, it doesn't somehow read it the same way as if it's in the first comment. That's really the only answer. Yeah. But I mean, we all know those posts, those horrible posts that are like crammed with 30 hashtags that they look bad. So putting them in the first comment is a way of separating.
If you're an independent artist and you have a little bit of momentum and you're considering actually getting a publicist or a PR firm and getting some of that hard-earned money you've been trying so hard to pull together, what's a reasonable budget for a small to medium independent artist that they should consider before even moving forward with a larger PR campaign?
I think the first thing you really want to ask yourself is, what kind of PR do you want? And if the answer is Pitchfork and Good Morning America and the Ellen DeGeneres show, that's not an answer, right? Logically. The thing that's interesting about PR right now is we're at a tremendous race to the bottom. There's 750 music PR people on the PR list alone, which is a list where we all talk to each other all day long. And there are some horrible, bad players in the market that are literally scam artists. So we'll just take all your money and it's not going to go well. So I would say $1,200 a month, 3-month minimum would be the least that you could spend to get a decent publicist. But I often finding someone who's a great hustler and really good at communicating and giving them a couple $100 a month and letting them run your PR could be better than hiring a crappy PR firm. So just do your homework really well.
Any other questions? We've got Ariel Hyatt in the house. It's a great opportunity to ask a question.
I'm sweating up here. Come on.
All right. Yes. Okay. Traveling back across the room. Here we go.
For those of you that are like dying to leave and eat dinner, I won't be offended if you want to get up and go. I see people like.
Hey, do you have any advice for any up-and-coming musicians looking to tap into the festival market? Like, I've seen something that I've read online, which isn't the best thing to, judge. That says like, if you're not ready for like record industry people, figuratively, then, they're not ready for you, so to say. But would you have any sort of, comments on that?
Gosh, Scott would probably be so much better than me at this, but I would say this. Have a killer live show. People come to festivals we all know why we go to Jazz Fest, and it's not to sleep, right? It's to be electrified by a live performance. So really work on that. Really understand how to package yourself. Like, what is it that a festival would look for? I think name recognition is something, unfortunately, a lot of festivals are not just going to take a chance on a completely unheard of artist. But Scott, I'm going to let you take that.
Well, that is a big one. So I get dozens and dozens and dozens of emails every day and every week from artists that I've never heard of that want to get booked on one of the festivals that we produce. I'm going to assume that all of them are equally worthy, but not all of them have equal name recognition. And like the festivals that we do are free. We're not trying to sell tickets, but we are trying to sell beer. And if there's nobody there to drink the beer, then there's no revenue for us. So we always have this struggle between wanting to give a shot to that cool unknown band that nobody's heard of that really is awesome and you should hear them, and people that will reliably bring heads through the gates and sell the beer. So there's that challenge. My best advice is to try to understand that all of the people that you're approaching, they have limited schedules. There's only a certain number of bands that they can fit in any given year, and they've got thousands of people trying to get those spots. So if they don't book you, it's not personal. It's just math. And so what I'm trying to say is, don't get mad. Because I get angry emails from people saying, you mean you didn't book me on this thing? You so-and-so and so-and-so. It's like, great, guess what? No, I'm never, ever, 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 ever gonna book you. So don't get mad at them. Be understanding. It's like, hey, that's cool. Maybe next year, and just have that kind of attitude. There's all these resources out there to find out what the festivals are and where they are and when they are and what kind of music they play and all that kind of stuff. So you can do the research to find the festivals that are appropriate for whatever it is that you do. After that, it's just persistence, and try to present them the stuff in a digestible way. Don't make it overly slick. If you're an independent artist that's representing yourself, be yourself. Don't try to make it look like it's a fancy PR press release. I have booked bands at festivals that I got some 8-page academic email saying, this is why you need to book this West African Ngoya player at your festival. Guess what? We had an African music festival that needed a West African Ngoya player. And didn't matter if it was 8 pages or if it was a slick PR move. Just be honest. Yeah. And that stuff will carry through, because if you're reaching out directly to somebody in my shoes, and I know it's you're an artist, I just want to have a real conversation. And hopefully they'll get back to you, and hopefully they'll be like, look, hopefully it's always better to get a no than a no answer. So if somebody will have the courtesy to say, look, I'm sorry, I can't do it this year, like, it's cool.
Which
try again
mostly
next year.
they won't, by the way. This is my biggest gripe with the industry. I mean, everyone's so busy. Even a no is hard to get. And a no is also no for right now. This is a resource I want to share with you. It's called Indie on the Move. It's a network of music venues and artists led by a beautiful man. His name is Kyle Weber. He's dedicated his life to helping other independent musicians get ahead. It's, I think, $7 a month. And there's a massive list of festivals. There's venues. You can even hire Kyle, and he's not expensive. I think he's like $300. He will work with you to hone your video, how it should look, help you figure out what festivals might be appropriate. So you might want to check out Indie on the Move.
Well, the last thing I would say is that when you do present your stuff to a talent buyer, make sure you have a link to a decent video. Because if it's somebody that's never heard of you, the first thing they're going to want to do is see what you do. And listening to it in an audio file isn't going to get it. So they've got to have some decent video. Say, look, I'd love to play at your festival. Here's a video of me performing at wherever, and here's a link to my website. Remember what I said earlier? How if I Google you and the only thing that comes up is an 11-year-old MySpace page, forget it. So, spend the $6 and get a website.
Thank you so much. So I'm surprised that we didn't really talk about this, but publicity, if the first thing that I think about is the press release. And maybe the fact that we haven't talked about press releases kind of speaks to...
Yeah, so that's the last thing I think about, honestly. Yeah, so press releases. Press releases are meant to be written when there is something that is newsworthy. News, unfortunately, from the media standpoint, is not that you are releasing your sophomore album and it is coming out on April 27th. That is, never write a press release for that. That will offend, right? Press releases are, I have a show coming up. Here is the start time of the show. Here is what the show is about. I am affiliated. I got a huge sponsorship deal. I'm going on tour. There are many reasons to write press releases, but just vomiting out a press release about I have a record coming out, it might be for your local media that knows you, yes, but for the most part, I unfortunately find artists write press releases for the craziest things. They're not newsworthy. So just resist the temptation to, create a media release unless there's a true reason to do so.
Yes. All right, just a couple more, then we got to go.
Thank you. You mentioned that the traditional bio is not really that cool anymore. Can you elaborate a little bit, like what a modern bio might look like for an artist?
Absolutely. So a modern bio should have a nugget. The nugget can be anything. It just needs to be a conversation starter. So you don't have to, in your artist bio, put the entire history of the band and go crazy with a lot of detail. You just want to have enough to pique someone's interest about what makes you different, what's special, why do you make music. All of those things could be. I have an entire webinar that's free where I interviewed the top bio writer that I've ever worked with. It's 29 minutes. Take a listen, and we go through what makes a good bio, what doesn't make a good bio, and he actually talks about his process of how he grabs that nugget out of artists, and it's really worth listening to. Yeah, it's on my website. My website is cyberprmusic.com, and there's an artist bio webinar. You can just listen to it for free. I think it's, let's see, on my website, CyberPR Music, there is a freebies page. You can go right there. You can download everything I just said and more. And here are my webinars. So the one you want is this one, the artist.
Well, y'all got your money's worth tonight.
The artist. I like making stuff for artists. So artist bio webinar, 29 minutes. Lorne is brilliant. He's written bios for everyone from Julian Lennon to Lana Del Rey to some top hip hop artists. Like, he's very amazing. And he really walks me through and you through what makes a great bio.
Can I just, on the bio thing, I would recommend somewhere in there you should geolocate. You should say where you're from or where you live, because I have gotten inquiries from artists who, because we primarily book local artists for our concert series and our festivals. Every once in a while, or for certain events, we'll have traveling artists, but for the most part, they're local. And if I go to your bio and it says, grew up in Charlotte, and that's it, and you're emailing me to get on one of our shows, I'm saying, well, why would I book you? Because you're from Charlotte. And they'll say, oh, but I've lived here for 7 years. Like, oh, well, that actually makes a difference. Right. You should have said so.
This is also why hiring a true bio writer can be to your benefit. I think it's one of the hardest parts of the puzzle is to actually write about yourself. You might not necessarily know what the most interesting thing is about yourself. It might surprise you.
All right, last call for questions. Going once.
want to say your website is really cool, and it's really cool how you put so much freebie stuff on there and information for artists and indie artists to be able to find all these resources and for free. That's really awesome.
Thank you for making music. Know, please, that without you, we don't have anything. Every single one of us that works here, if you feel like you're trying to get at someone, no. We're all doing this because you do this. So don't forget that. I think it feels disempowering when you're trying to book, trying to get, trying to do. We don't exist without you, period.
Well, so the website is your homework. That is your lanyap. You get to go take that with you and digest it on your own time. But our gift to you tonight is that you actually have Ariel Hyatt here in the flesh. So I think we should all give her a big thanks for sharing all this wisdom, for coming all the way from New York to New Orleans, and for being here with us here at the Jazz and Heritage Center. So Ariel, thank you so much. It's been a treasure, and we'll see you on the interwebs.
Yes. And come buy my book if you want one.
Hello, but